And it is our pleasure here on the Saturday Morning Jukebox to talk with one of the legends of music, of course, Don Wilson, one of the founding members of The Ventures. Don, welcome to the program. Great to have you on this morning.
Well, thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Well, Don, take us back to when it all began for The Ventures back in the late 1950s. I understand that the group kind of started over a car deal, it sounded like, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I was selling used cars, and this guy came in. I didn't know him, and I was a terrible salesman, and I was working on a commission. If I sat and talked to somebody for a while and I really liked them, I knew what cars were not that good and what cars were.
Uh-huh.
And this guy named Bob Bogle, who I didn't know, came in, and he said, I'm looking for a car. And then he and I got to talking, and we had a real good rapport. So I said, he said, how about that car over there? I'm a big salesman, right? I said, no, you don't want that. Yeah, I said, I'll tell you what the good cars are. So I pointed. He bought a car from me.
Uh-huh.
And then I said to him, I know you are in, concrete work and masonry. And I said, is there any way you might get me a job? And he said, well, I'll try. About 2 months later, he came in and said, I got you a job. And so we got along real well while we were working, and we started working out of town and had nothing to do. So what we did is bought 2 guitars in a pawn shop, I think for about $15 a piece, just acoustic guitars. And, of course, we wanted it electric. So we bought all kinds of chord books and thought, gee, we're getting pretty good here. Let's go out on a limb and buy some Fender guitars, put about $10 down, which we did, and bought 2 Fender guitars. And bought an amplifier, a Fender amplifier, and, just jamming, cramming what we could in our minds with chords, because chords are so important.
Sure.
You can play 3 chords, 4 chords, but if you don't go beyond that with minor chords and things, you're just not going to make it. It's too complicated today. So, and then too. Mm-hmm. So anyway, my partner Bob Bogle, he had a vinyl record of Chet Atkins playing a song called "Walk Don't Run," and he played it fingerstyle, jazzy, and of course we had just learned to play the guitar. And over about a year or so, it developed into what you hear now, which is "Walk Don't Run."
Wow, that is fun. So you guys had literally not really, even though you loved the guitar and all that type of stuff, you really hadn't played until you guys sat down and kind of taught yourself, I guess, huh?
Absolutely taught ourselves.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, no lessons, no nothing. But, when and then just to go on a little bit, once we did do Walk Don't Run, well, I went to my dad for one thing, mm-hmm. and I said to him, because my mom was really helping us. She believed in us so much.
Right.
And so she would take, the Walk Don't Run around the stations, and so did we. And I said to my dad, this was before we recorded Walk Don't Run, I said, if you give us, we've saved money. We both had families. We've saved money enough to go in and do a recording, but we're about $50 short. Would you be interested? We'll give you a 4th or a 3rd or whatever the record makes. He says, not only am I not going to give you the money, I don't want your mom running around to something you're going nowhere with.
Wow. Wow.
So anyway, then it became a hit, and, So this is, but we got turned down so much. Yeah. Different radio stations just turned us down. One radio station said this, it's pretty run-of-the-mill. Well, as it turns out, it's not even close to run-of-the-mill.
No.
So anyway, we got turned down a lot until the disc jockey here in Seattle, they had what they call a news kicker. They would play mm-hmm. A song and not tell anybody what it was just before the news, and they'd see how many calls they got, and they got the switchboard lit up to say, what was that? I like that. So it went to number 1 here on this station, KJR, and then it started to go nationally.
Sure.
And a guy here named Bob Reisdorf had called the station, and he said, what is that? He had Dalton Records, mm-hmm. and he had a group called the Fleetwoods that already had 2 number 1 hits. So he really liked it. He sent it down to Liberty Records, and the president of Liberty Records says, no, I don't want it. It's not a hit.
Wow.
And that's Bob Reisdorf. He said, put it out, and if it loses any money, I'll pay it. and it went on to be number 2 in the nation.
Man, that is phenomenal. Now, you and Bob are obviously on it, but did you put together a band to record it? Is that the version that we hear now? Obviously, you put a band around that, right?
Well, that's a story, too.
Yeah, okay, all right.
We had been doing some, sitting in different places and doing these talent shows, which are not talent shows. They're actually how many people you have there that make the loudest noise. So anyway, we did a lot of those, and we needed a drummer, and the same drummer played with us quite a bit. And his name was Skip Moore. Mm-hmm. And I said, we're going to go in and cut that Walk, Don't Run song. He said, oh, okay. And then I talked to Noki Edwards. We had just met him. And I said, do you play the bass? And he said, yeah. And he was, one of the outstanding guitar players here in this area at that time. And so what happened was we went in to cut Walk, Don't Run with a drummer named Skip Moore and a bass player named Noki Edwards. So that's how that happened. And then we asked Skip Moore, look, just like I did with my dad, I'll give you a fourth of whatever this record makes, or $25. Guess what he took?
Oh, he took the $25, right?
Took the $25.
Oh, man.
I feel bad about that, of course. I still do even today.
We're talking with Don Wilson of the Ventures, founding member of the Ventures, still going strong. And Don, when Walk, Don't Run takes off, and it does, like you said, goes to number 2, all of a sudden, I mean, you guys went from, literally not knowing how to play guitar, self-taught guitarist, to having a band, to all of a sudden, I mean, you're the talk of the town and the talk of the country. Talk to us about the effect that had on you guys.
Well, we had learned a lot more than Walk, Don't Run. I mean, we went in and recorded that. And we had people saying, before we did, why don't you go and record that? And so, we saved our money and did. And it just so happened, I don't know how this happened. It's kind of fate or whatever. The drum on Walk, Don't Run by Skip Moore, he was different. Mm-hmm. And he had that roll that was, kind of offset.
Yes.
And no other drummer that I know of plays like that. And then Noki Edwards playing the bass was terrific, too. I mean, he didn't overdo it. It was just right. Mm-hmm. And when I said we went to number 2, I want to tell you why we didn't go to number 1. This was our competition in the top 5.
Okay.
The Twist, Only the Lonely, Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny, Bikini, It's Now or Never, Elvis Presley. I mean, come on. How would you go to number 1? We were going by on the Billboard magazine every week and seeing if we went to number 1. But we stayed at number 2 for a long time.
Sure.
And then they switched off back and forth to Twist and It's Now or Never, Only Lonely.
Yeah.
So it was a bad time for us for getting number 1. But number 2, hey, not bad.
No, not bad at all. Now, you came along at the time when the electric guitar was just kicking off. And I mean,
right.
You talk about, coming into it, I guess, at the right time. Timing is everything. And I think you guys hit it at the right time, didn't you?
Yes, we did. As a matter of fact, we went in to do Walk, Don't Run. Other musicians were saying to us, "You're going to go in and record that without a saxophone or a piano?" They said, "You're not going to go anywhere with just 2 guitars, a bass, and a drum." And so I figure we were probably the first to use that combination just because we didn't know a saxophone player or a piano player, which turned out to be great that we didn't, because we'd probably put one on there.
The Ventures are known as the band that launched 1,000 bands, and you guys started a cottage industry there among everybody that could play and thought that they could play. All of a sudden, there was garage bands all over the place, weren't there?
Yeah, there were, and we had an instruction album out. We thought, well, people are learning to play. They send us letters that say, "I learned to play on your copying your records and things like that." So we thought, well, why don't we put out an instruction album? We put out an instruction album that hit the top 100, if you believe that. And it's the first one to ever do that, and never again was there an instruction album on the top 100. That's quite a thing, too.
And, talking about timing, I mean, there's all kinds of experimentation going on. I mean, the stereo came in, the hi-fi sound. You guys were experimenting with your music, too, using the full range of stereo. So, I mean, that was just a very I guess, just a phenomenal time to be in the business, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. There wasn't much money to be made unless you were Frank Sinatra at that time or whoever, but we went out on the road, and I still have some old contracts that we worked for 5 hours a night, going all over the country for dancing. And so, it was tough, hard work, and getting to and from and all that. I have contracts that say that we made $250, and the most may be $500, playing maybe 4 or 5 sets a night of 45 minutes.
Sure.
So it was tough, yeah.
And radio back then, the old top 40 AM radio, I mean, they had to, the disc jockeys had to hit the news at the top of the hour live, so instrumentals were rife for the disc jockeys to back time, so you guys are probably getting a lot of airplay that way too, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right. We did get a lot of airplay that way. One time I'm watching Casey Kasem's Top 40 Countdown on TV, and he says, has a trivia question, and he said, who was the very first artist, not just group, who was the very first artist to have the same song, different arrangements, both hit the top 10? And I'm thinking, I don't know. I wonder who it is. He comes back and he says, it was the Ventures with Walk Don't Run and Walk Don't Run 64.
That's right. You did come up with Walk Don't Run 64, and that was basically the same song, except you guys enhanced it a little bit. Again, we talked about putting in some of the special effects, and you guys really kind of blew that one up a little bit, didn't you?
Yes, we did. And we're the very first to ever use a fuzz tone. A guy in Los Angeles, I moved down there from Seattle to be close to the business, and a guy was a steel guitar player, but gee, he was so electronic and genius at it almost. And he made this little box that made a fuzz tone. Mm-hmm. And we got that from so many big artists today, that the very first thing they ever heard the fuzz tone was from the Ventures.
Really, they talk about the concept albums, but you guys really were doing that back in the day with, you take a theme, maybe it'd be television shows, maybe it'd be movies or whatever, and you guys would do albums, and all of your albums sold tremendously, didn't they?
They were something else, I mean, would-be's, like you said, would-be guitar players or mostly guys,
Mm-hmm.
A lot of girls too,
sure,
would buy our albums, and they just wanted to learn to play so badly. So, we did very well with that.
When we talk about television, of course, probably the all-time popular television show that we really hear your music on was a show that came out, I think, in '68, late 1960s, Hawaii Five-0, and
Right.
you guys had the song for that as well, didn't you?
Yes, we did. Yeah, but we did not do the theme on TV. That was the writer himself. Now, there's a story about everything.
Sure.
We had an engineer that we used to do Ventures, and he did the music for Hawaii Five-0. And so he came to Mel Taylor at the time because they were real good friends. He says, this guy Mort Stevens, who wrote it, he's only got a 30-second version of it. And he said, you guys should record it. It could do something. Mm-hmm. Well, we recorded it and put it out, and it didn't do anything. And as a matter of fact, Hawaii Five-0, the TV show, was not doing well either. The scripts got better, and they started getting more audience. And so, we got turned down again like we did Walk, Don't Run with Hawaii Five-0. So anyway, we hired this guy that calls and, see if... will you play this record or that record? And he had different artists, of course, but he took on Walk, Don't Run. And he called the station and said, this is funny, he said, I got a breakout on a station with Hawaii Five-0. And they said, where? And he said, Hawaii. Well, they weren't too impressed with that until he got it on a Sacramento station, and it went to number one.
And the people that you influenced, I mean, that we hear about now that went on to become legends in their own right. I mean, people like Joe Walsh, who was a
Right.
great artist, John Fogerty. I mean, the people that became Jimmy Page. Yeah, that I mean, as you hear that, there's got to be a source of pride in that, isn't there, Don?
Oh, definitely. Jimmy Page is the one that said the very first time I heard the Ventures, they had a fuzz tone or some sound that was just like a bee,
Right.
Because you couldn't identify it. When we first heard it, we said, well, what does that sound like? When he gave us that little box.
You've had a great success not only in this country, but you have had and still do a phenomenal success. You're phenomenally successful in Japan, aren't you?
Sold 40 million records in Japan alone.
Wow.
We've had 20 number one hits in Japan. 20. But, we were talking about It must make you feel good, to know that these musicians actually respect you and whatever, that are very popular, too. What's a real good feeling? And we had that a lot after the Vietnam War.
Yes.
We had different guys come up almost with tears and say, your music and you guys got me through Vietnam. Now, how can you beat that?
And back in the day, I guess I'm bouncing around here a little bit, but
yeah, that's okay.
But I know there were you guys, the Fendermen were out there, and the Fendermen were kind of a front to sell Fender guitars, I think. And you guys kind of got. Did you guys get a piece of the action from the guitars? I know you guys played Fenders or started out with them. Was that part of the gig too?
Well, you know what they did. I don't know that it just happened naturally or whether they planned it or whatever. But every year, Fender Company would give us new guitars. And they wanted the old ones, though. And so at that time, who knew,
Right.
We gave them the old ones, and they gave us new ones. That happened about 5 years in a row. That's the only thing we ever got out of Fender.
Okay. But were you able ever to sign like a guitar deal and make that part of the, when you switched brands to guitars eventually too, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. We started playing a Mosrite guitar.
Yeah, I remember that.
Because Noki was playing it, and he gave us Sammy Mosley gave us a commission. So we went with that. But,
fantastic.
We wanted him to change the guitar, because it wasn't exactly what we wanted. It had a kind of a thin neck, and we didn't want that. We wanted more of a Fender neck that we were used to.
Right.
And he said, no, I won't do that.
Wow.
It's a Ventures model.
Yeah.
You have to do what we want. He said, no, I make that guitar, and that's the way I make it. So we said goodbye.
Yeah. Don't blame you at all.
Everybody identifies with Mosrite.
Okay, gotcha.
Not Fender, but
you guys still are touring. How many dates do you do now, Don, with the Ventures?
Well, we go twice a year now to Japan. We're just complete and total legends in Japan. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We started a guitar boom over there when we first went over in 1962, and nobody knew who we were. And they couldn't afford Noki or a drummer, so just me and Bob.
Yeah.
And so we just did that, and we played around different places, and mostly military, American military. And the shows that we did, anyway, they started, unbeknownst to us, playing our records everywhere.
Wow.
In Japan, on loudspeakers, on cafes, radio, TV,
jeez,
and they just sold like crazy. And the next time we went over there, which was in 1964, I believe it was, there were 5,000 people at the airport. Well, we drove up on the plane, and taxiing, and looked up over at the building, and there were people like you wouldn't believe. I'm thinking, God, who's on this plane? The president? And welcome the venture. Like, we couldn't believe it.
Wow.
I'd have known that, I'd ask for more money.
And you guys have outsold the Beatles in Japan, like 2-1? I mean, you guys are just phenomenal over there, as you said.
Yeah, well, the reason that's an absolute fact is because we were with Toshiba Records, and the Beatles were also with Toshiba Records. And so they know exactly. We not outsold the Beatles when they came out. We outsold them 2-1 for the first couple of years.
Man, that is great. And music changed, obviously. I mean, they went from the instrumentals in the 60s to all of a sudden, it's hard to find any instrumental tunes anymore. But you guys were able to kind of meld in and survive that. I would imagine probably the Japan popularity over there really went a long ways to keeping you guys going, right?
Yeah, it did. But, it's like you said, we started doing, what do you do with instrumentals?
Yeah.
You got to think of something. What we did was, go on like the Colorful Ventures, and then we'd have songs like Blue is Blue and Red, whatever,
Right, exactly.
Pink Panther theme, anything with a color in it.
Yeah.
And that did very well. Then we started doing vocals that were popular and doing them, venturizing them and doing them instrumentally. And we did very well like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So what do you do with instrumentals? That's what you do.
You betcha. Make it go. Unfortunately, we lost Bob here just a little while ago, one of your co-founding members. That obviously was a sad time for you. You guys have been together for so long. That was tough.
Yeah,
but
we've been together for 52 years. Now, he died 2 years ago.
Gosh.
Had that scourge called cancer.
Yes.
And, that was just very traumatic for me. He and I got along so well, more than brothers.
Yeah.
And this is a fact. In 52 years, we never, ever had an argument. Would you believe it?
That is phenomenal, especially with bands. They're notorious for fighting among themselves.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
But, he might say something that, that I'm thinking, you got to be kidding, But I don't say that. I just said,
Okay.
And that's how you get along so well.
Wow.
Never step on each other's toes is what somebody told us.
You bet. 2008, again, a career highlight. The Ventures are inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. John Fogerty was
Right.
your presenter. That had to be a big night for you guys.
Oh, it was absolutely wonderful. And one of the things that you find out that you didn't know is that, we've influenced not only guitar players, but drummers and keyboard players. Billy Joel is backstage, and we're just going to go on. And he said, Walk Don't Run was one of the first songs I ever learned on the piano. Oh. And then Elton John had a Christmas album out, but not him. All different artists, and he chose us as one. And he had a little article about every artist that he put in there. And he said, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said, I grew up with the Ventures, Walk, Don't Run, and Perfidia. Uh-huh. He said, the Ventures are cool.
Oh, man.
That's quite a compliment.
Oh, it sure is. And I got to assume, we talked to a lot of the folks from your era of music, and the thing that's really neat, Don, and I'm sure in your case too, when you go out and you see the crowd, I mean, there are people there from, that were with you from day one, but now they're bringing their kids and their grandkids. I mean, you're talking about multi-generations now, aren't you?
Yeah, we are. We're talking about families.
Yeah.
The older people bring the younger. And before, they had been prepped because these young people come and say, my uncle had all your records, or a lot of your records, or my dad, or even my grandpa, if you believe that.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, they're very well aware of the Ventures, and they had become Ventures fans. Now, we're not young anymore. Little subtle ways you find out that you're getting older. Mm-hmm. I was up at a bar, a couple of years ago, I guess, and I happened to sit down next to a young girl, and I looked at her and I said, do you think you could get interested in an older man? And she looked at me and said, why? You got a son?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, that was pretty cool.
Being a rock and roll artist, I've had these, girls, of course, my door, knocking on my door from about midnight till about 3 a.m.
Wow.
And she started pleading, so I thought, well, what the heck,
Right.
I finally got up and let her out.
Well, Don, I'll tell you what, it's been a pleasure. You guys, I'm one of the many that you influenced. We certainly never came anywhere near what you guys did, but we were one of those garage band kids in the 1960s, and the drumming of Mel Taylor.
Well,
he was.
Thank you, because that's very important.
Oh,
very good.
It is fantastic, and you guys continue to influence people, and I'm so glad to hear that you're still going strong, and keep it up, and God bless you. Okay.
Well, thank you very much.